Hey there, my name's Gary Sims and this is Gary Explains. So I thought to myself, it's about time I did a video about ChatGPT. Obviously, it is kind of the big buzzword at the moment, the big thing that people are talking about. And I thought it would be important to actually look at kind of the tech, how it works, what the fundamental technology is, what it can do, what it can't do, and what we're going to have to see in the future to turn this kind of technology into something absolutely amazing. So, if you want to find out more, please let me explain. Now really this is going to be the first in a series of videos, and so this one kind of has that introduction flavour to it. You may know some of these things already because you've used ChatGPT, but I recommend that you watch it anyway because in the future videos I'm going to build on top of it. For example, I want to do a video of who's going to win the AI war. Is it going to be Microsoft? Is it going to be Google? Is it going to be Amazon? Is it going to be someone else? And look at what this kind of new thing means to existing businesses like Google and Microsoft and Amazon and see why. Anyway, that's for a future video. What I'm saying is this is a series. So anyway, let's dive straight in. Okay, so the title I've given this is A Line Out of the Matrix and modified a little bit. ChatGPT, simultaneously our greatest strength and our greatest weakness, in the sense that it is really quite amazing, and yet at the same time, because it's using this transformer system, which I'll talk about in a minute, it isn't a solution for general artificial intelligence or for a learning system. We'll get more into that in a minute. Now, I'm not going to cover topics of artificial intelligence, general intelligence, in the sense that what is intelligence, sapience, consciousness, strong AI versus weak AI, all that stuff. I'm not going to go into any of that now. I do have other videos, some here on this channel, some on Android Authority channel, touching some of those different things. But I will say this is a quote from Einstein: it would be possible to describe everything scientifically, but it would make no sense. It would be a description without meaning, as if you described a Beethoven symphony as a variation of wave pressure. So there is this aspect that it's a description without meaning, and that really is what ChatGPT is. And the description is good, but of course ChatGPT doesn't understand the meaning of any of it. Okay, so all machine learning, whether that's object recognition, is this a cat, is this not a cat, to ChatGPT have two phases: the training phase and the inference or interrogation phase. Training takes data and creates a model, a neural network, and the more training data you have, the better. If you just show one picture of a cat, that won't be enough to train a neural network. You need to show it hundreds, if not thousands, of pictures of cats. And ChatGPT and others use a thing called large language models. So you may have seen people talking about this now, LLMs. LLMs, large language models. Now, once trained, you can then interrogate the model, the neural network. Is this a cat? Or in this case, you can ask ChatGPT a question based on this large language model that it has been trained with. Now, we're going to talk a bit about critical mass, because there seems to be some interesting things that happen when you get to these very large language models. And to demonstrate that, we're going to first of all look at some of the smaller models that use the same system, but they're much, much smaller, much, much less data that was used to train them. And let's just have a play around with those. Okay, so here we are in the OpenAI playground, and that here allows us to select smaller and simpler models rather than the full GPT-3 model. So I've chosen the Ada after Ada Lovelace, and I just want to show you something. Now, this has got a cutoff date of 2019. So what I'm going to ask it is this: is the Queen lives in Buckingham, and I'm going to stop. Okay, and if I hit submit now, let's see what happens. Palace. The Queen lives in Buckingham Palace. So as you can see, it's just generated the next token. It knows what should come next. It hasn't tried to talk to me. It hasn't tried to, give anything fancy. It's just completed the sentence. So let's try another one. London is the capital of, and then just do submit. United States of America. Look at that. So that wasn't what I expected. I tested that a moment ago and it actually gave the right answer. Let's just try again. That's quite funny. Okay, London is the capital city of, let's try that again, the United Kingdom. There we go. So it fills in the rest. It fills in the rest of the blank. So these language models are based on tokens, and they try to generate the next token that should come in the sequence. And as you can see with these very simple ones, it's not necessarily going to work. So for example, this is something you could do on ChatGPT without any problem. Write Python code to find a prime number. Okay, and we submit that, and well, that is Python, but obviously that's nothing to do with prime numbers. It's just if n is less than 2 in correct number of parentheses in function, and then there is a missing bracket there. It's nonsense. It's complete utter nonsense. So, you know, when we start with the simple models, we can see it can complete the sentence. It can say something. But when you try to actually get it to do something complicated, there's just not the language, you know, the database isn't there, the information isn't there. Okay, so now I've gone up to Babbage. That's the next level up. So let's try again. London is the capital of, submit, England, and the most popular city in the UK with a population of over 10. And so there you go. Have just not completed it with the capital of, and it said England rather than the United Kingdom. That's an interesting thing as well. But you see, it's created more than just what it did last time with the smaller language model. It just was able to complete with 1 or 2 words. Now it's gone on to create a whole sentence. The area was first known as London, was first settled by the K, and then it's run out. So that's also interesting. Let's try our Python code example. Write Python code to find prime numbers. Submit. Okay, well, this is looking more sophisticated, but it's wrong again. I mean, there's not even a def. Prime is equal to 1. Prime is equal to prime plus 1. If prime is equal to n, my incorrect prime. No, I mean, it's talking about primes, and it looks a little bit like Python, but it's completely nonsense. So we've gone up from Babbage, of course, named after Charles Babbage, to Madame Curie. Curie database. Let's try again. London is the capital city of, submit, England and the United Kingdom. So there you go. I was talking about that previously. I didn't even know. So it is, of course, the capital city of England and the United Kingdom. And then it's gone on to produce some more. But again, it kind of stopped here halfway. So the city, and then that's it. It stopped. Let's try our Python code again. Write Python code to find prime numbers. Let's see what that does this time. Okay, so this is looking a bit better. You've got a function again, but then it just gets itself lost again. I mean, it is Python, but it's just nonsense. You're saying if it's 2, it's a prime. If it's 3, it's prime. That's not the way to do it. Obviously, if it's 4, it's not a prime. It's 5. So it did better than the previous models, but again, that's not really at all the correct answer. Okay, so now we've gone up to Da Vinci. So let's try again. London is the capital city of, submit, England. London is the capital of the United Kingdom, and it's then giving us the rest of the stuff. River Thames popular is known for it, and then it's cut off again. So different style this time. It said the capital of London, of England, and then it went on with a second paragraph. Let's see what happens with the Python code. Write Python code to find prime numbers. Submit that. Program to check if a number is prime or not. Num is equal to int input, so it asks you for an input. And then it stops again. It was more complicated again. You can see something that's way more complicated, but again, that wasn't really what we're looking for. My guess is you've got a smartphone. The question is, what kind of case do you have on it? Is it thick and bulky? I'd like to recommend to you Phoenix phone cases because they are so thin. If you do buy from the link that you'll find in the description below, that will help out this channel. Okay, so those smaller models are fun and intriguing. The output is in English. It makes sense, which is absolutely amazing in itself. That's amazing, but it might not be right and it might not be very detailed. But when you increase the size of the model, the level of unexplainability and incomprehensibility increases. What do I mean by that? the bigger the model and the more connections are made, the more weights, the more biases, the more parameters, we call it, are inside the neural network, we from the outside understand it even less. It becomes unexplainable and incomprehensible. And there's a whole bunch of issues around here about AI safety we won't get into now, because we don't actually know what's going on inside of the neural network. Now, if the only difference, I don't think it is the only difference, but if the only difference between the ADA model that I showed you there and ChatGPT is the size of the data, then this is both amazing and worrying at the same time. Why is it amazing? Because we just gave it more data and it got more, in quotes, intelligent, or it seemed to be intelligent, and yet at the same time that's incredibly worrying, because you go past this moment of critical mass where the size of the model gets to a certain point and suddenly the output it's generating seems, genius in what it's saying. Now, there is this, people have done some studies on this, and when the language model reaches a critical mass, we start to see a thing called in-context learning, where the large language model learns to accomplish a task after only seeing a few examples. The current study, the current theory is that there's an outer neural network, and inside the neural network, all these millions and millions of connections, billions of connections, there are smaller neural networks that are actually themselves being trained by the outer neural network. And this has come about in quotes naturally. It's a phenomenon. It's a result of the way of using this kind of neural network. So what is this neural network? What is this whole thing? Well, it's a GPT, ChatGPT. So GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. Generative in the fact that it generates text. So it's not just recognition or classification. It's not just saying this is a cat, this is a type of flower. It's actually telling you, it's generating an output. It's pre-trained because the P is trained on lots and lots of data, basically the entire internet. We're talking about hundreds of gigabytes of text. And it's a transformer. This is a neural network architecture to learn the statistical relationship between words and phrases. So you saw earlier when we did the Queen lives in Buckingham. Well, there's a very strong relationship between Buckingham and Palace. Buckingham sweet shop or Buckingham cheese pie have very weak relationships between them. But Buckingham Palace, a very strong relationship to it. And so fundamentally, a GPT generates text given a prompt. The input is text and the output is text. So ChatGPT is a GPT system designed to have conversations based on the input, and it's big. 175 billion parameters. Parameters includes weight and biases. If you know a little bit about neural networks, the weight determines the strength of the connections between the neurons in different layers of a network, while the bias allows for the shifting and scaling of the neurons' inputs. The number of parameters in a neural network directly related to the number of neurons. So if you imagine yourself, little circles with lines connecting, kind of a network topography, and the number of connections. That's how you define the number of 175 billion parameters. And 175 billion parameters is costly. There is guesstimations that it costs around $4.6 million just to train GPT-3 and then by extension ChatGPT. That may even be higher for ChatGPT itself. And if you were to run it on a single GPU, it would take 355 years to get all that data processed. And so it's estimated that to train GPT-3, that consumed 1,287 megawatt hours of energy. So it's a big thing. From my understanding, it's running in Microsoft's Azure cloud, and they had to pay a lot of money to get all those GPUs running and doing that stuff. Just like to remind you can follow me on social media. All the handles are here on the screen, and I also have a monthly newsletter. Go to GaryXplains.com, type in your email address, no spam, but you will get the newsletter. So what can it do? Well, hopefully you know what it can do. Let's have a little quick tour. Okay, so there's lots of things that ChatGPT can do. We could say like this, give me 5 ideas for managing my time better. And you ask it, certainly, here are 5 ideas for managing your day. Set clear goals and priorities. And it's going to go on now, create a schedule, and just give us a list. And these are pretty good list. That's absolutely great. You can ask it, facts, what year was Gary Oldman born and where? Okay, so Gary Oldman was born 21st March 1958 in New Cross, London. So now I don't have to do Google search, because this is what Google are panicking about. I can actually just ask it. I don't have to go to Wikipedia anymore and then read out, what happened. I can just, just type it in here and it will tell me the answer to what I'm looking for. What films did Gary Oldman appear in? Question mark. Okay, Gary Oldman has appeared in numerous films throughout his career. Sid and Nancy, Pick Up Your Ears, Criminal Law, State of Grace. It's doing them kind of chronologically. Okay, so it's giving me The Fifth Element, Air Force One, Lost in Space, Hannibal, Harry Potter, of course, Batman Begins, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. So it's giving me so it's giving me 20 kind of in a list, and some of those, those are the ones that I would certainly pick. It's not an exhaustive list because he has a much more greater career. But what I'm saying is, you just ask it questions, it's gonna give them to you. Create a fictional name in a space opera. Okay, so here's a fictional name of a character, Zara Novari. Okay, there you go, brilliant. So these are the kind of things, and then of course it goes beyond this. You can ask it, and this is one of the killer features, you can ask it to write programs for you. So write a Python program to calculate the area of a circle. Okay, sure. Here's a simple Python program to calculate the area of a circle. So there you go, import maths. You ask you to enter in the number, and then it just prints out the area of the circle. It knows the pi r squared, basically. So that, and it even gives you a little explanation. You could ask it, you could say, what is a GPT? Because we're talking about GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer, and there you go. It's going to go on and tell us all about it, and we can read about it. You can ask it to write programs in C. Write a C program to generate a Fibonacci series, and it will say, sure. Here's a simple C program to generate a Fibonacci series, and it will go through. It will create you the code, how many terms you want, and then it will just go out and tell you. And here it is, and then it creates the code, and we could take that and compile it and test it. It's probably okay. If you try to ask it to write more complicated things, then that's where it sticks, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. Of course, you can imagine, you're doing, programming at school. You've got a little assignment from your teacher. Write a program that will, reverse a string, sort a list, whatever it is that you're doing in IT or in computer science. And it would be really easy for ChatGPT to do it. You could also, write a summary about the life King Henry VIII. So now I've got my history homework. King Henry VIII was the King of England, the most famous ruler, ruled from blah 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 blah, and there we go. And now I'm suddenly getting my history homework done for me. You could try to. All kinds of stuff, geography, math, science, computer science. So this is why it's being so popular, and this is why it is so very, very important. Now that's all very interesting and very, very exciting, but where are the weaknesses? What is wrong with it? What can't it do? Now it's getting harder and harder to confuse or to cheat ChatGPT, with riddles and funny questions and so on. I've been going through the internet looking for previous answers that didn't work. For example, I've got one here that I did and posted it on Twitter back in January. So it is, how many letters are there in the word internationalization? The word internationalization has 17 letters. It doesn't. It has 20 letters. So let's see what happens if you ask it that same question now. There are 20 letters in the word internationalization, so it's improved from the January the 9th. I think I post that to now in the middle of February. It has improved. And there are other ones people have tried to trick it with various tricky questions. Now here's another one. Let's try this and see what it says. Was Queen Elizabeth's mother in the same country as her daughter when her daughter was born? Let's see if it understands. Assuming referring to Queen Elizabeth, her mother, Elizabeth Bowes-Lowe, and later known as Queen Elizabeth, was in the United Kingdom when she gave birth to her daughter. Of course she was, because they were both born in London. And so, of course, she was in the same country. So it started before, if you asked it that, I think there was a question about where Abraham Lincoln's assassin was when he was assassinated, and he said it didn't know where it was. So it's improving. Here's another childhood one that you can that you probably said when you were a kid in the playground, in the play yard. It's the middle of the night, the doorbell rings and you wake up. You have an unexpected visitor. It is your best friend and he wants to eat. You have ham, honey, butter, bread and cheese. What is the first thing you open? If my best friend arrived in the middle of the night and wanted to eat, the first thing I would open would be the door to let my friend in, which is right. And that's what a 10-year-old would say in the playground. So, it gets all these things right. Now, sometimes it doesn't get maths right all the time. That's definitely a problem. Here is a question that actually my 11-year-old got in a maths homework question just the other week. 3 brothers save a total of $81,081. Half of what the first brother saves is equal to 1/3 of what the second brother saves, which in turn is equal to 1/4 of what the third brother saves. How much did each brother save? So we'll go away and ask it, and it starts to say, okay, the first brother saves X, and then it starts to try to go logically through it. Let's see where it ends up. Let's see if it actually, here we go, X plus 3X plus 12X, 16X. So X is equal to 5, 12 point. Well, this is wrong now. It's having a good old stab at it, and it's just making things up now. This is just utter nonsense. What it should actually be, the answer should be 2A, because it's plus 3A plus 4A is equal to 8181. That's what the actual sum is when you work it out. And so it's now saying, okay, I've given it this clue. So it's got context. It's remembered we were talking about these brothers. Let's see whether it actually works it out now. So we can write 16A. Well, it's not 16A. It should be 9A. That's the problem, because 4 plus 3 plus 2 is 9. Okay, so let's try it again. 9A is equal to 8181. Okay, 9, then we can solve for A. 9 divided by A, so simplifying that, A is 909, which is correct. Okay, so that's the first brother, and still getting it wrong. So, it because it can't think, because it can't reason, doesn't actually understand the question that you're giving it. It's not saying, okay, it's actually just trying to regurgitate the next things it thinks it should say according to this huge connections that it's got. It doesn't always get it right. Now, the Wolfram Alpha people had a very interesting blog post about this very problem. Let's see what they said. So the Wolfram Alpha people wrote a blog post, and they point out that Wolfram Alpha does something very different from ChatGPT in a very different way. But it does have a common interface, and that's natural language. You write sentences into Wolfram Alpha just as you would to ChatGPT. And this means that ChatGPT could talk to Wolfram Alpha just like humans do. So it could send over a text to Wolfram Alpha. Wolfram Alpha then turns that into some precise symbolic computational language on which it then uses its computational powers. That's the way it converts that natural language interface into something that it understands. And so there are examples they give on where ChatGPT is weak. And I tried this today as I made this video, so it's one of these ones that still doesn't work. What is 9 to the power of 42? 9 to the power of 42 has been calculated by multiplying 9 by itself 42 times. Correct. This is time consuming to do by hand, so we could use a calculator or even a computer program. And then it says 9 to the power of 42 is, and it gives you this very long number with 31 digits. That looks impressive. You might say, wow, look, it knows that 9 to the power of 42, you multiply 9 by itself 42 times, and there's the answer for you. Big, long, 31-digit number must be correct. In fact, if you type that into Wolfram Alpha, you get a different number. It starts with 11 for starters, and it's got 41 digits. So one of these is wrong. Of course, it's ChatGPT that's wrong, and it's wrong by a factor of 10 digits. So, more than 1 million times, more than 100 million times, more than 1,000 million times wrong in its calculation. Write a program to calculate 9 to the power of 42. Sure, here is a simple program, and it writes the programs. And when you run the program, you'll get the same output as we obtained earlier. Here's what it says, and there is that 31-digit version, which is wrong. Now, let's run that program. So I type that in, and then I just, I catted it out here. The result is, 9 times the power of 42, and you run it, and you get the Wolfram Alpha answer, 41 digits long, and that's the correct answer. So that's Python giving it, but that's the Python program that ChatGPT told us to run. So what do Wolfram Alpha say? There are all sorts of exciting possibilities suddenly opened up by the unexpected success of ChatGPT, and I'm absolutely in agreement with that. But for now, there's an immediate opportunity to give ChatGPT computational knowledge superpowers through Wolfram Alpha. So it cannot just produce plausible human output, but the output that leverages the whole tower of computation and knowledge that encapsulates in Wolfram Alpha. And of course, they're very keen to point out the accuracy of Wolfram Alpha in many things. So what that means is the GPT technique doesn't hold all the answers. So to move towards a more generalized machine learning system that's able to perform all kinds of interesting things, we're going to need more than just a transformer, a pre-trained transformer. For example, we're very used to getting our assistants from Amazon and from Google, voice assistant, to do things. You know, set a timer, set an alarm, remind me to do this, call so-and-so, and it just kind of does it. My mum recently got the Amazon one. I won't say the word in case it fires it off for you. And, you know, she's not particularly tech savvy, but she just actually be able to say, call Gary, and it starts to call me, and that's great for her. Now, obviously, ChatGPT can't do any actions. So you can ask it these things, it can give you text back, but it's got no action. There's no assistant attached to it. You can't set calendars, you can't turn lights on and off, you can't, you know, remind me to do something in future, and you can't use all that power to get it to do something, just in the same way you couldn't use all that power to get the maths things done. So there's going to have to be a connection between the output that ChatGPT can create and other things like maths, like assistant kind of stuff. And that may require a different type of model. Rather than generating text that we're used to for humans, you might want to generate a command, something that could then be fed into Wolfram Alpha, something that can be fed into an assistant, and then actions can be performed about it. So having a natural language interface that can understand context and what you're doing, and then the result is not just more text, but actually a command that can then be fed onto something else. That, of course, can also be very powerful. Okay, so that's it. My name is Gary Sims. This is Gary Explains. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do give it a thumbs up. As I said, there are more videos coming in this series, so if you want to make sure you don't miss them, please do subscribe to the channel. Okay, that's it. I'll see you in the next one.